What's up, everybody? We're back and we are live. We're just kind of going to talk about a little bit of HAZMAT today. Captain Cordova, who's not here today, had a call the other day. He got called out to a Circle K for a CO2. And we really wanted to break down, give some training out there for if you're a move-up captain or an active captain, don't have a tech background, just give you some basic things you could think about going on scene for a known CO2 leak, carbon dioxide. We're just going to keep it real simple, talk a little bit about it, and then we got couple techs here. Then we got Captain Bedoya here too as well, being a non-tech. So maybe some questions he'll throw in there, but we'll keep it simple. We got a little PowerPoint. Let's have some fun and enjoy the process. So we'll start off. Oscar, what do you think about CO2 versus obviously carbon monoxide versus carbon dioxide?
So yeah, CO2 versus CO. And we joke around a lot saying CO1 just so people know the differences. So, carbon dioxide, the CO2, is way different than CO. CO being a carbon product of combustion. And that's going to be a whole different topic we're going to talk about later.
And that's what comes out of our cars. Right?
Cars.
Yes, there you go. Easiest way to think of
it.
it.
And CO is what we exhale. A lot of other different products that they use for soda machines, breweries. Gyms are using it now. I know Zach's going to get into his PowerPoint with that, but that way we just know the difference is that even at the level of hazmat techs with meters, our CO2 meters cannot pick up CO. So we'll get a little bit more into about that, but that's the simplest thing is if you have a CO meter, you're not going to pick up CO2. If you have a CO2 meter, you're not going to pick up CO. And it's so complicated at the hazmat level that we have separate meters and separate sensors, and those sensors are so delicate and so sophisticated that.
So don't group them together.
Yeah, don't group them together. Just because they have a CO, that tube makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to get into a whole chemistry thing because it's a mess. But
it's way above our head. You wouldn't understand anyway. We're just doing you a favor.
High level stuff,
It's bro science, dude. We break it down.
Yeah.
For carbon dioxide, appears it's colorless, odorless, and you're not going to smell it, you're not going to see it. It's something that's going to get you.
Yeah, a few things to think about. Like if you get called out to a CO2 and they have a meter in the establishment, and we'll talk about who would, it's non-combustible, non-toxic. But what it does is it pulls out the oxygen. So it's a simple fixant, meaning that it's going to take all the oxygen, so they'll displace it, so there will be no oxygen in the facility. So if you walk in thinking an odorless and it's a gas and somebody's unconscious, these are things that start red flags. And we'll talk about where to find it. But
so this will make you go unconscious.
100%. Yeah, it's just going to overload your body.
Pretty quick. And, there's been some other departments that have had some calls where, underground part of CO2 is heavier than air. So it's going to bank down onto the ground. So as soon as that starts filling up, displacing oxygen, that whole room's going to fill up. So if you go underground or that place is so saturated with CO2, the minute you walk in there, depending on how many parts per million, it'll take you out right away. So the big thing we're going to hit today is always wearing PPE, SCBA. It's an unknown hazard until proven otherwise, and that's why you utilize your techs and your meters to identify what's going on.
And it's coming in, walking in, situational awareness. They could be called out for an ill person, but why are they ill? The establishment. So some basic things to remember. The main route of CO2 exposure is inhalation. So that's something to think about. Normal background, so meaning that if we fired up our meters right now in the atmosphere, it's usually around 380, 420 parts per million. There's a couple other things. Time-weighted average, 5,000 parts per million. One of the most important things I think, if you're a tech and you're a non-tech, you don't really need to know this, but I want to really hit this point. The ideal H for techs is 40,000. So that means if we walk into an establishment, we want 10% of the ideal H is our warm zone. So now, if you have a meter, which Avondale, you guys use meters quite a bit. I want to really hit this for you guys. Let's say the oxygen level is 20.9. If it drops down to 19.9, that's 50,000 parts per million. You're already past the ideal H, meaning that if you walk in, most likely you're going to pass out and have symptoms now. So you can't go off just, is my oxygen normal? Is it a confined space and the oxygen saturations are down 1%? So this is one of those tricky chemicals that if you don't know what you're getting into and you start seeing numbers drop on your oxygen meters, that this can throw you off because you think, well, it's just 1%. It's 50,000 parts per million.
It's huge.
And we'll get in that.
Huge. Just having that 1% drop of oxygen, people think, oh yeah, it's nothing bad. At 19.5, we can operate or whatever the case is. But like Zach's saying, it will drop you or potentially put you unconscious. And then if you're dropped and your whole crew goes in without CBA and you all get exposed, you all drop. Who's gonna call that Mayday? Or who's gonna drag you out?
Now,
So
is that because that 1%, you don't know what that 1% is? If it's all carbon dioxide,
Yeah,
your smoke, then that's way past all
the
those
ideal
numbers
age,
that you
yeah.
just rattled off.
And you exactly, you don't know what's displacing that 1% of oxygen. And again, even if to us it's like, oh, it's just 1%, but it's huge. At 1% makes a big difference. So, the biggest thing we're gonna drive today is always wearing your SCBA on air. It makes no sense to just put on your mask. And call the techs, call the guys that can read this, and let's find out what it is.
If it doesn't feel right, pull out.
So let's back up to the TWA.
Literally.
What's that?
Huh?
Time weighted average.
Time weighted average. So this is something they based off of NIOSH. Is just saying like a person in 5,000 parts per million could work for 8 hours in this environment. So somebody who's not always around, maybe offloading tankers or pressurized rail cars, whatever it is, that this is kind of how they base it off. The symptoms that you work in 5,000 parts per million will be very low, but you can only do an 8-hour span. So sometimes when you think about like going into a restaurant, and you say like they have a system in place where they have a soda machine and they use carbon dioxide, so they have a meter there, and sometimes it usually reads, sometimes those things bleed out, so you can get 1,000, 1,200, 3,000, 4,000, up to that 5,000. If it's not ventilated properly, you're going to start seeing symptoms. So this is just saying if it's ventilated and you're getting 5,000 parts per million, you can work up to 8 hours. That's their
symptom
basic.
free, right?
With
Yeah,
symptoms free.
Be safe.
Yeah, and those
Ventilated,
systems
though.
are made for that. They're gonna burp, they're gonna bleed, pressure relief valves. So that's what they're saying is the study of you can work in this environment for this long under these conditions, and then anything above that, then you'll start feeling symptoms, and it's gonna be dangerous. So
Let's go to that next slide. Next slide. How is CO used today? So there's a couple things. What I really wanted to hit with this, man, is typically delivered in a pressurized cylinder to businesses. So meaning that it's going to be liquid form. We got called out to Sam's Club a couple times. They have a doer outside, and they'll just have a truck. There's a little outside on the wall that you can use, and it will fill their actual system. So there's things that if you might not see it, but if you start looking at like pools, and we'll talk about places at restaurants and stuff, they might be able to fill from the outside. So just know sometimes these trucks will pull up, fill the system up, because liquid, the expansion of gas, because it turns them from liquid to gas, how they utilize that thing. But think about it as a cryogenic liquefied gas, so meaning that the temperatures need to be very, very low in these establishments. Even if it's outside, as long as the container can hold that coolness of it, that's part of this process.
and it's
Cryogenic is called.
yeah,
Exactly.
cryogenic, and it's below
Cryogenic.
freezing. So if that's leaking and you think, oh, with just a structured glove you're gonna go and shut it off, it could freeze your hand.
Yeah.
So
Tell these seasoned techs dropping all these big words that like Hugo's gonna take as disrespect.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I
Watch
have
your
no
mouth.
idea what you're talking
He's
about.
about the CO2 systems.
We're going to bring this all full circle back
What'd
to
you call
like being a captain and not tech, but we're just going to get some information out front. And sometimes it's common to see like you'll see some icing on maybe the cylinder and stuff because it's cold temperatures. They're taken from a liquid to gas, so two different things. Where can we find CO2, man? This kind of like really surprised me. The more and more I look into it, the more and more CO2 is everywhere, man. Like restaurants, obviously you guys know that. Breweries, anything you think of where you get a soda, you get your little diet soda rolling, man.
Yeah.
I know you guys love Chick-fil-A, and them boys got them CO2. You know what I'm saying?
them
But-
boys.
boys.
dangerous.
But even what surprised me, I think, was the gyms. CO2, how it naturally user-friendly, but alternative, it's a mineral acid for the pH. So what it does is help control that pH. It is an acid, so what it does is rather than using chlorine, it can help you balance out those levels a cheaper, more efficient way, especially for big pools, industrial style.
And just so with the restaurants, so people know, the doers, and you'll see a picture of it, but it's a big cylinder tank. It could hold a couple hundred gallons of CO2. But they're not always going to be like that. Some of the mom and pop shops are going to have the little, they almost look like the little helium tanks or the 150 cylinders.
A don'ter.
Yeah, the little guys. So and those things aren't always secured. You're supposed to have by code, have it chained up, and have all these sensors. The mom and pop shops might not have the sensors, the means to provide those sensors. So if you run in there, and you see all these little cylinders, you're like, well, I'm not seeing that big silver one. Those are the same thing, at just a smaller quantity, but those things are just as dangerous. So just because they don't have the big one, so you'll see in different, shapes and sizes. So
Yeah.
Refrigerator, you guys know that refrigeration, that's probably a big one, help for the cooling, pH as well. Metal industry, this is another one, man. This is another one I didn't think about it till later on, but the hardness of casting molds. So thinking about walking into a place and they have that carbon dioxide, they have all these cylinders and something goes wrong, man. Not only is there other acid and bases in there, but now you got a gas that you can't see, heavier than air. So when you're walking into it, the unknowns, like protecting yourself, especially if you see symptoms of like somebody unconscious, or we know carbon dioxide is in the ambient air. It's around us at all times, but at higher levels, it's going to increase your heart rate, increase your breathing. You're going to have all these symptoms that a lot of people say they have like a metallic taste in their mouth when you get high levels of this. So just something to think about as well. And then agriculture. Goodyear has farms. Goodyear has everything. We got a little bit of everything there. So
all our surrounding areas, yeah. So and anywhere you go, as a tech, you start thinking different. Now as a BLS or ALS non-tech, you think, oh, difficulty breathing. You don't really dig too deep, but like Zach was saying earlier, if we're going to a restaurant and they're having difficulty breathing and there's maybe multiple patients or just one, where are they? The proximity to the soda machine, to the kitchen, things to kind of start piecing together that as a non-tech, when I was a non-tech, you really didn't think about it. You're like, oh, I just want to go treat this, and you kind of have that tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. But now as a tech, and there's so many different avenues that makes you, I think, just a different firefighter. I'm not saying a better firefighter, but different. You start thinking of other ways. Well, is there HAZMAT involved? We always think, is there HAZMAT involved to this patient, to these symptoms? So it opens up your eyes. So that's just one thing we want to know, is don't be tunnel vision like, oh, is it just COPD or some sort of illness? No, they're at a restaurant, they're at agriculture, they're next to a tractor, swimming pool, Lifetime Fitness, all these different avenues now.
Dude, those like metal shops that you're talking about, dude, those guys working there are savages, dude,
Oh.
with all the stuff that are in there. You're like, oh my god, dude,
When,
you don't
when,
want to walk in there.
when you walk in there and you see the walls different colors
Yeah.
because of all the stuff that's just floating around, I mean, that's
Dude, the hair in the back of my neck instantly stand up in those type of things.
Mine, it's too long, dude. but it like wants to, but it's just too weighted down, dude. But so like, yeah, I get it. Dude.
Your hair just parts, dude.
Yeah.
It's just ready for war, dude.
Oh shit, dude.
like, oh, something's going on. Look at my hair. Look at my
Yeah,
hair.
there's dioxide here. I can just
Yeah.
tell. But what we're really trying to drive, man, for those non-techs is that when we were talking to Captain Cordova, something he said like, hey, man, it's a normal habit like for natural gas leaks that we're going to take a dry take a dry supply line, pull a protection line, and be ready for these things. Just knowing that if you're getting called out to a carbon dioxide call, is that it's not more of a protection line, the flammability, it's more of the toxicity of it. Like, meaning you want to evacuate the place, isolate, deny entry, and understand like, why is this meter going off? Most likely like a QT, they're going to call you and say, hey, we keep having this meter go off and it keeps going and going. We don't know why. There's nothing leaking. Well, if it's colorless and odorless, it's probably leaking. There's a meaning that it's over 5,000 parts per million. That's probably their trigger. Maybe like 2,500 to 5,000. Something's wrong. The system's made not to leak that much. So the protection line is not necessarily the key to it. It's more evacuate. There's something in there that's not ventilated properly that we need to open up the doors, get everybody out, get a hazmat crew in, and let's start the process there.
So will CO2, like, will you get an explosion?
Nope, it's not gonna be an explosion. It's more of people are gonna start dropping, just displacing that oxygen like that. It's just gonna overrun your system if it's high levels. And there's different ways. There's parts per million and percentages. We use parts per million so we can hit it very low. When you start trying to meter stuff in percentages, 1% is that 50,000 parts per million. So we're thinking like anything around 2,500 to 5,000. That's a small leak, but it's here. Something's wrong. You start getting into 15,000. You can even ask them like, what did the meter read inside?
So reading it in percent, you're waiting for too big of a too big of a jump before you start getting something.
Yeah.
That's been a problem, not just our city, but our whole system. People relaying that on the radio of we're getting no readings. Mm-hmm. But when you're reading in percent versus parts per million or parts per billion, you have to say what you're reading in because like Southwest Gas cares about the percent.
Yeah.
Because that's what they operate. We don't. So we're getting no readings in parts per million, but it's still reading something. So that's a huge
percent, yeah.
Huge.
Is it a danger to us right now? And that's how we kind of translate it too. Is like, is this gonna cause us any danger, any effects? So, but I think the biggest thing is like, CO2 is not flammable and it's not gonna explode necessarily. But I think getting the mindset to the non-techs, like our job is to pull hose, right? We're firefighters, and the simple thing is like fire alarm indications, natural gas like CO2, CO calls. We don't really know as non-techs. We don't really know what's going on. We can kind of start painting a picture if it's a QT, some sort of convenience store where you might identify that. But keep in mind that some convenience stores also have natural gas going into it. Mm-hmm. So would it hurt to have a protection line down? Not at all. Have that mindset of coming in. It's the unknowns. You know, there's a Captain Phoenix Tiffy that always put it great on fire alarm indications. It's a fire until proven otherwise. So in this situation, it's a hazmat scene or a hazmat situation until proven otherwise. So let's treat it like something really is there until you get the text to identify it. So you get there, pull protection line, how Zach said, you evacuate, isolate, deny entry. It's not your guys' job at this point to go looking for problems. Hey, what's beeping? What's going on? We are fortunate in the city that we work for that we have 2 hazmat units, and if not, we have a great system in the region that we have hazmat units come on. Squad 44 is probably gonna be the first one there because they're always there.
Yeah.
They're gonna beat us. They're always there.
Science.
So good job, Squad 44. But you know, you got the professionals to say, the experts with meters to come and identify. So why put your crews at risk? We get a lot of crews that want to go in there with the wrong meter or maybe the right meter, but when was the last time that meter was calibrated? When was the last time you really bumped that meter, you checked it? Is it accurate? Is it the right meter? If you're a non-tech, you know, when we first started with our department, we had these little CO identifiers that we would always keep on top of the visor. And as far as I know, I've never seen those get tested. I know they're off the trucks now, but just wait for the techs.
They never got tested, and we never got shown what
how to use
do.
it.
I remember I just would go like this in the house.
Yeah. And it's like, hey man, and it's funny when you see the non-tech crews that have some sort of meter, and it's a CO2 call, but they're metering up high. Like, no man, you need to go low. Vice versa with natural gas or CO. You know, it's lighter in there, so now they're here. So again, isolate. You know, get everybody out. Isolate it, deny entry, have that protection line, stay out. You know, maybe, you can secure the gas. If it's a commercial, don't mess with the power, but just wait for us to get there. Don't go in there and be like, hey, here are the readings and here are this. If there's no immediate danger that we have to evacuate somebody or go rescue somebody, just stay out and stay out far enough to where, you know, any of that product that's coming out outside that's going to affect you. So stay on there, though. It's really important that you're going in there. We see a lot of crews that put on all the gear, and they put on a helmet and a pack, but no mask, or they're not even plugged in. So just be cautious of that.
Keep it simple, man. And to look up something, if you guys are interested, Phoenix Fire Department had a call, McDonald's 2011 Engine 61, and they really talk about this because there's some things that they learned from that. You know, just like we would be like, so a lady passed out. It was an ill person, pregnant lady fell down the stairs, and they went in like a normal medical call. And then 2 guys like, we'll go check it out. Maybe she slipped on some. And it was down in a basement where they had these carbon dioxide cylinders. And they walked down there like it was normal, and then like, wait, something's not right. And then they started coming back out, and then they started getting symptoms, you know. So just those red flags, man, it's not worth it, dude. I love you guys enough. I don't care where you come from, what city. Why risk it? Yeah. Why risk it? Get everybody out.
You know, one of the best videos I've ever seen, and you get that in your first responder hazmat thing, and you know they show you that around this area anyway because it was Phoenix, but. It was crazy how close that was to being a rescue, man. You're in the basement with this. If they're not walking up the stairs when they feel those symptoms, they're passing out down there and they're smoked. So
and it could be that quick. It could be that quick, man. So just be cautious.
And if you're the captain, like I would be like Hugo, it's us 3 on his truck. Me and you are going to check it out. We'd be down there. He'd be like, oh, they're still looking. They're trying to find the source. It could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It'd be like, hey man, it's been 10 minutes, dude. Where are those
They're
dudes?
Down there just sleeping, dude.
Yeah.
Just sawing logs, man.
Yep, done.
We're just both chilling, dude.
Just sucking in parts per million.
Parts taking all those
EPNs. Just TWAs, all in that.
TWAs,
the whole alphabet is
LELs and HDLs and
OPPs.
That's the thing is like again, we have that mindset of just going in there and tunnel vision of it's a sick person, and then you don't know your environment or what's going on around you. So yeah, just be cautious with that. So.
Here's a couple examples you guys see, so you can see what we're seeing. That's a doer to the left, and then kind of like a traditional system of a restaurant, even a fast food place. You'd see multiple of those little soda places and a couple cylinders next to it, and then about knee height is usually where those meters are. So that's just something to think about. Carbon dioxide lower, carbon monoxide is more like your head. Think about your forehead because it's almost the same as air, and then think about natural gas always above. So if you keep it that simple, man, above, middle, low, carbon dioxide is always your knee.
But just, a great example of this picture on the right with that 150-pound cylinder, like they're not always secure. And, you get these kids that just aren't really, energetic to work out at some of these restaurants, and they just throw the boxes in there or hook it up or toss things around. You see that box leaning up against that 150 cylinder, they can bump that meter and break it, or something could happen. When was the last time it was really checked or anything like that? So a lot of different considerations. Just because you see a perfect setup or a messed up setup, there's a lot of things to take in mind. So.
And with that Phoenix thing, the meter was broke. That was another thing.
Yeah, which they usually are. And dude, I was 15. I worked at a pizza place, and like it was like, hey, dude, the Coke's out. I'm like, all right, I'll send it. And then I just had that same setup. Like you're not trained. I was 15.
Yeah.
There's like unplug and plug, so you don't know how the safety measures. And I didn't know there was a meter there or anything. They just like, yeah, that's just where it all comes out. So just figure that out.
And then that Dewar had some ice on it, frozen over. So just what that does is, as the pressure is releasing, kind of like our air bottles, as you release the air, it gets colder just because of the friction that's causing. So, some of that moisture is going to stick onto those pipes and cause some of that freezing. But it's okay. It's normal.
That's good.
And then last is just a truck, a CO2 truck, and then that to the right is actually a system used for a majority of these industrial pools, like your gyms and things like that. Where I didn't even think about it until like really researching that. Man, it's everywhere. It's the silent assassin, dude, is what I call it, man. Think about them knees, please. You go down to your knees, it's probably carbon dioxide, dude. Just FYI, future references. But anything else, dude?
No. So it's good to know, because I think we, like you said, we kind of group them all together, and we just think, all right, get everybody out, get it all clear, see if they have any medical needs and pool protection line, and we stand there and we feel like it takes 90 minutes for you guys to walk up with the meters, but there's a lot that goes into it, and you guys are considering all these things that we didn't. But it's just good heads up now to know that these scenarios, when we go into gyms, when we go into these, now we have certain calls, now we have that in the back of our head of, all right, we have to keep aware of where they're at and the kind of symptoms they're doing, and be very self-aware if we start feeling anything. Luckily, that crew felt it and got out right before they became victims too. So I think it's really good to know, because I times I've been on calls or I've seen calls, is we get in that habit where we put all this stuff on, but it gets kind of a pain in the ass to fill my bottle. And it gets kind of a pain in the ass to have to change it out and go to a U-boat or go to the station that has it. So we don't click in all the time, So it's just a good heads up of just go in, make sure you're on air. If you're going to actually go in, get everybody out, and don't go searching for the problem. Because sometimes, in the fire service, we always want to feel like we're the problem solver, right?
Yep, exactly.
Everybody's fighting to be the smartest guy on the scene. So they want to go find him and come tell you guys what's wrong with it. And that's not what you need us for. Just get everybody out and make sure that there's no medical needs, and let you guys go do your thing. I've had this at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
We had this call, and we were first in, and I was a non-tech truck. We just happened to be leaving the hospital, and we were the first one into it. And I remember the workers all standing outside, and the owner going, yeah, here, watch, come follow me, and we'll go, I'll show you where it's at. And he had nothing on. He wanted to take me to the CO2 system.
That's their jam.
Yeah. Because they're just as bad as us with the ego. Mm-hmm. That manager there wants to show all these workers that they're the smartest guy there.
There's nothing broke. It's just the stupid alarm.
So luckily, I knew not enough about CO2 to feel comfortable about going in there. So I told him just to wait. And it's good to know that that's the right call. Just keep people out. And I don't need to be the problem solver. I just need to be not letting the problem get worse. And that's, I think,
you said it perfect. We want to fix everything right away. So, but there's going to be times where we're there for another 48 hours or whatever the case is. So why rush this? It's not a fire where we have to extinguish it right away and mitigate the problem. Let the techs do it. Same thing, like if it was a TRT or Mount Rescue, like.
Or even other calls like the gas calls where we walk in and we go, yeah, man, I can smell it in the laundry room. I can smell it like. That's not I'm not a sniffer machine either.
Yeah,
and that's what we need to remember too, is we don't need to go in there and go, I don't smell any gas, and now we're breathing this in.
Yeah, if you smell it, you're too close.
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't smell it.
Well, and this we're not gonna smell it. But I think I'm thinking it's a natural gas leak or a hazardous situation, so I treat it like that. So it's just good to know that we need to be cautious, and everybody needs to stay in their lane. And it's just a reminder.
It's a little bit different, not to switch topics with natural gas. There's a reason why they put that mercapta in it, so you can smell it, that rotten egg smell. So, because it's flammable and it's a lot more dangerous than any of these two. But at the same time, like if you're smelling it, you're already too close into it. You don't know at what levels they are. You know, because
and we don't want people to get confused that this is what your home detectors have. It's CO.
Yeah, CO.
CO1, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
CO1 versus CO2.
It didn't even take 5 weeks of school for this.
Yeah.
dude.
Because it's 6, you go.
Yeah.
You know the difference.
So this isn't what this is. These are the areas you're going to see it. These restaurants, these gyms, and the metal shops. Yep.
agriculture, and there's stuff that I didn't even get a name on. There was so
Which we
much.
all have in our cities. Everybody has it. You don't.
Stay out of the
There's
metal
not a city in the valley that doesn't have a farming area. There's not a city in the valley that doesn't have industrial areas. So it's important for us all to know and to really slow things down and be heads up.
At the same time, you could be walking in somebody's house, and if they're growing marijuana or doing some sort of production in there, whatever the case may be, they might be using CO2 to compress something or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But it could be in the room right now. John could have it in his room, and we might not know it.
I don't run that here, Oscar. We safe. Just CO1.
CO1 up in here.
Just for my guys.
But that's just a little bit, man. And that was Captain Cordova had that call, so it was something just to bring up and talk about for non-techs. And we geeked out a little bit. Oscar's passionate, Boyce is passionate.
So, but it just shows too the we don't have to do the go on scene and hurry up and pull this line.
Yeah.
The priority is to get people out of this.
100%.
Get people away first, and then we can start setting up the protection
Definitely.
line and everything else. Checking for medical treatment because it's obviously going to really affect them. So medical treatment is going to be a high priority, right? With
100%.
these people where I feel like most of the time they smell the gas and they get out of the way before they start feeling things, and they're out of the house already or they're out of the building. With this, they're not going to know something's wrong until something's wrong, right? So really get them away from it.
Call us,
Yeah.
dude.
Mhm.
I know hazmat crews. Maybe they say, call us. This
Yeah.
is what the one thing we get to get back with that schooling that we love to do.
Yeah.
Let us do our job.
Yeah, because it would suck if you're like, I don't know, man. Let's go check it out, and something happens and you don't call us. That's what we're there for. That's why techs are there for these specialty crews. So
Probably get that extra pay.
Oh, push out.
Earn it.
Oh, yeah.
Dollar
Time to earn it.
bills, y'all.
He said it right, dollar.
Well, that's just a little bit. We want to kind of hit a chemical, start back to the basics of maybe just some help non-tech captains, and then I really want to bring some hazmat guys in here from the valley, and let's start really dropping some knowledge and get deep in it, like calls that are coming up in the valley or even in the nation that we can just talk about and learn from to protect all of us, man. We're all in this together, so just remember that, man. We're only doing this to put out some content and then get some people in here and create content that we can all learn and be successful and serve, man. Do the things we love to do.
And maybe Manny will make it next time.
Yeah, maybe.
And there's no ego to it too.
100%.
And that's the thing is this isn't to show that our hazmat trucks are better than cities who don't have it or cities that do have it. It's just showing that we can all help and look out for each other. And if you don't have it, here's a basic video of things you can do to help and keep you safe. It's not to show that you guys are smarter than them. It's to show that you can do things safer and here's the best way to do it. Just a basic breakdown. So
Keep it simple, man. If you just have a playbook, keep it simple with chemicals and hazmat. And if you don't know, call us. That's it. Period.
That's what we're there for. We have the meters. Again, don't try to go finding, exploring, and just think because you have 1 meter that you're going to mitigate it.
Yeah, like Michael Scott says, keep it simple, stupid.
Oh,
He-
amen.
Yeah.
Dude.
yeah. And I owe you guys, speaking of stupid, I owe you guys a lot of apologies for the
That's
work you
permanent.
do. Thank you.
When you have the time.
Thank you for your service.
The glowworms.
Thanks, everybody. And any techs in the valley, man, you want to get on and talk about some topics or something you want us to talk about, or you want to come on and speak about it, that you have a call or something that came up that's a little tricky, man, please leave some comments on our Facebook or Instagram, and definitely subscribe to our YouTube, man. We're trying to make this bigger and better, and it's just to have a little fun and reach out to everybody we can. So take care of yourself. We love you guys. Thanks for the support.
Checks
Keep on
out.
keeping on.
Yeah. Back to the basics.